This is Trophy Dark, Mother, Part 1. I want to have us all introduce ourselves. So when I call on you, please say your name, your pronouns, and anything else you would like for us to know about you. I will start. My name is Jason. I use he, him. They is also fine. I am the publisher of Trophy Dark, or one of the publishers, and I have run Mother several times. I enjoy it. It's one of my favorites. It is a little different from other incursions in that it's going down into a place as opposed to into a place, and or laterally, I guess. Yeah, and this is included in the Trophy Dark book, which is no longer available for pre-order, sadly, but it will be available to purchase pretty soon, probably in a month or two. So let me go over to David.
Yeah, hi. My name is David. I primarily use he and they pronouns, although any are acceptable. I guess an important detail. I run a all PBTA podcast called my head's still a little fuzzy this morning. I run an all PBTA podcast called Trials of the Apocalypse, where we do one shots in different PBTA games. And I'm really excited to play Trophy. I haven't gotten to play it before, so this is really fun.
Oh, you've never played Dark or Gold before?
I haven't. I
cool.
only recently acquired the books, so
you will need to be in the Trophy Discord to roll dice. So I don't know if you're in there or not, but I will get you the link if you need it. So, okay, Alicia.
Hi, I'm Alicia. I use they and she pronouns. I also love PBTA games. That's my jam. I'm excited to play Trophy Dark. I actually wrote. I didn't design anything. I wrote a Trophy Dark incursion called Allura, which is full of space horror and robots, because my heart lies with science fiction primarily.
Fabulous, thank you. And Adrian.
Hi, my name is Adrian, he and pronouns. I've run the Flocculent Cathedral, I think, and played in the Giant's Carcass. So that's my Trophy Dark experience. I've done a lot of Trophy Gold playing. And I am also a researcher at the university, and at the moment I'm on a fellowship to do research in post-apocalyptic role-playing games at a new center of post-apocalyptic studies at the University of Heidelberg in Germany. And one of my questions that I'm thinking about is Trophy, or is the world of Trophy a post-apocalyptic world?
Yes. The answer is yes. Actually, I think there's a good argument to be made. It's also pre-apocalyptic, because it is in a weird place where it's like there was an apocalypse, we've recovered, and now we're about to have another one. Like it feels like we're repeating all the mistakes. I think it's post-apocalyptic.
So this now, of course, then raises the question: are all OSR games, or is Odient a post-apocalyptic game? And I would say yes, and that's one of the things I'm thinking about.
We have more of a setting, though, so that's a thing, right? Okay, fabulous. I will look forward to seeing that then. Let me talk about Trophy Dark. So we'll do Cats. Cats is concept, aim, tone, and subject matter. You all know what it is. The concept of Trophy Dark, it is a fantasy horror game with an emphasis on the horror. This game is about doomed treasure hunters going into a place that does not want them there, and that place destroys them. Essentially, it causes them to basically change in ways they may not like. It can kill them. These are people who are ill-fated, and so that is sort of its jam. It has a certain bleakness to it. This particular incursion, Mother, is about a delve deep into a mountain, and we get to meet the Trophy World's version of dwarves. Not today, but next week. And so, yeah, that's fun stuff. Actually, no, we might meet one this week. Okay. Anyway, I don't want to say any more about it, though. It's by Jesse Ross, the original creator of Trophy. Jesse wrote several incursions, and this is one of the ones he wrote. And the aim, we're going to create characters, then we'll introduce them, and then we will begin. Our goal is to finish rings 1 and 2 of the 5 rings, and the next week we'll do rings 3, 4, and 5. We'll have a debrief afterwards. The tone is dark, as you might imagine. This is really not the space for levity or humor, though as a sort of pressure valve, I think it's good, but we should always try to get back to the dark place whenever we can. In terms of subject matter, I shall just read it off. Amputation, body horror, confined spaces, graphic violence, harm to children, heights, pregnancy, suffocation. Those are the things we can expect to be happening in this particular module or incursion. We will have our various safety tools that we always use. We'll have the X card. Everybody here knows how to do it. And lines and veils on the character keeper as well. And always the open door policy too. And so that is cats. Any questions about cats or anything about just the high level stuff? No? Okay. In that case, I'm going to pause the recording and we're going to make characters. Okay, we have our characters. Let's go ahead and meet them. We are going to start in reverse order of the sheet. So right now at this point, all I need to know, David, about Parda is her occupation, her skills, her background, her drive, and what rituals you've chosen. Basically everything you had to choose. You can tell if you know anything about their backstory to this point, you can share that, but it's okay if you don't, because we're going to learn as we play. So yeah. So go ahead and tell us about Parda.
So Parda uses she, her pronouns. Her occupation is a spider, which gives her the skills of surprise, traps, and ferment. So we'll see how that gets fleshed out. But her background is as an impeached official. I think that after her father's death, she took over as the leader of her clan. And her brother, who was originally supposed to fall to, was none too pleased about this. And went off, and I'm going to interpret the drive here, which is break the Gios placed by the Witch of Navask, that perhaps that this witch's aid was sought by her brother, and a Gios was placed on her people. That's why she's an impeached official. She was ousted from her role for some crimes that she claims to have not committed. Who knows whether or not that's authentic, but she is seeking to find the power to break that Gios. So the ritual she has circle, so she can use a ring of salt to prevent a creature from either inflicting or suffering violence. And then she also has compel, which I think ties in with her desire to break a Gios. She can force a creature to perform a non-lethal task or free a creature from a prior compel.
I love it. Thank you. I'll note here that because somebody had to teach me too, that it's pronounced gesh, that word.
Pronounced gesh?
Gesh, yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I've heard it, only ever heard it as Gios. So
yeah, it's
gesh.
Or that's
right.
Yeah. I may not be pronouncing it correctly, but it's like that though. It has like
Gotcha.
a SH sound. Yeah.
Gesh.
I gather it's an Irish or Gaelic word or Celtic word or something. Okay, great. Fantastic. Thank you. Let's go over to Adrian and Fionn.
Hi, I'm playing Fionn, and they use they them pronouns. Fionn used to be a ranger living in the woods at one point, it seems, and then they're quite old, so they know the forest well, maybe not the place where we're going, but kind of the outdoors, the deep forest, and then they spent a long time in the city. And they were unmasked as Feyborn at some point and thrown out of the city. And now I think kind of the last thing they are looking forward to is becoming part of the swirling court, which hopefully is somewhere deep in the forest. So the skills are beasts, hunting, traps, and illusions. And the one ritual is beast, take a form halfway between human and animal. Starting ruin 2.
Thank you. Fabulous. Okay, and let's go to Alicia and Akale.
All right, so I am playing Akale, who the people watching this obviously can't see, but is literally just Guillermo from the US, what we do in the shadows, and that's all you really need to know. They use they, them pronouns. They are a medium, and an opportunistic grave robber is their background. And they want to become the only patron of Ansem the Wistful. And they have the rituals channel and ghoul.
Fantastic. Thank you. All right. Yeah, that's great. I don't think I have any questions about the characters at this point. And so let's talk a little bit about some rules things before we begin, and then we'll take a break and then we'll get started. So Trophy Dark is a highly collaborative game. I am the GM, and I do generally keep things moving and move the action along because it is kind of a linear tale. But it's highly collaborative. There are plenty of opportunities for you as players to fill in world details, to change the stakes of a situation, to dramatically alter the fiction, frankly. And the main way that you do that is through a die roll called the risk roll. The risk roll presents lots of opportunities for all of us as a play group to speak and say what we think could happen in certain circumstances, depending on how the dice go. There's one particular part of the risk roll called the Devil's Bargain. It is lifted from Blades in the Dark, though our version is a little bit more frequently used and nimble. But the Devil's Bargain is essentially, in order to get a bonus on your die roll, you hear offers from the other players and the GM. And if you accept one of the offers, you get the bonus. The offers of the Devil's Bargain, these are things, when you accept the offer, it's a thing that will happen no matter what, whether you succeed or fail. The offer you took happens in the fiction, right? So a simple Devil's Bargain would be, okay, Parda, you are trying to jump across a ravine, okay? And someone offers you, well, Parda, no matter what, as a Devil's Bargain, no matter what, you're going to drop your weapon down the ravine, okay? So if you're successful, it's just because your weapon maybe comes loose and falls down the ravine. If you are unsuccessful, it's because Parda also falls down the ravine, right? So that is sort of the Devil's Bargain, right? That's a simple Devil's Bargain, and that's okay sometimes. A more interesting Devil's Bargain might be, Parda, no matter what, the Witch of Navask is on the other side of the ravine, right? And so now that's a much more interesting situation, and it changes the nature of the story, right? So the incursion I have, Mother, it's mostly a framework for the tale, and it's focused on theme and color and cool moments, but the story is what we do together and the things we say to each other and the questions we answer and the Devil's Bargains we offer and so forth, right? So that's one thing to know about how the game works. Another thing to know is that this game embraces what is called a play to lose ethos. And so play to lose, I don't know if we invented this in role-playing games, but I claim credit for it all the time. Play to lose means your characters are ill-fated. They are doomed. And at some point, the shoe is going to drop and it's going to be their time. It's like their time is over. And so your job is to just let it happen, lean into it, and give them the most memorable end you can give them, right? So I like to think of it as we're seeing these characters basically at the very end of their story, right? Like this is the end. They've had a life up to this point. We're getting the really dramatic part at the end. Another thing about play to lose is you will at a certain point have to most likely make what's called a reduction roll in order to get your ruin back down below 5, because 5 is the danger point. In order to get the reduction roll, you have to betray the group. And so it is also a player versus player kind of game as well. So playing to lose means leaning into that and having good scenes where maybe you confront each other, right? So and that's basically it. There's also some other aspects of that as well. We have like a roll that usually comes up at the end of the whole incursion called the contest roll, where 2 treasure hunters are racing for the final goal and they have to roll against each other to see who gets it. But spoiler alert, they usually both end up at ruin 6. So, but one of them is the winner, right? So that is sort of how that's another thing about Trophy Dark. And with all that said, I think that's basically it. You'll be spending a lot of time answering questions that I pose to you. And so if you are looking for a touchstone for how to answer the questions, I always recommend the drive. I think the drive is a great touchstone to always come back to when you're thinking about your character. We'll take a 5-minute break and we'll begin with ring 1. Okay. Ring 1. If you ask any experienced treasure hunter to name the most terrifying thing in the forest, there is always one location that comes up more often than not. It goes by many names: the fell, the fall, the well, the quarry. Despite its many names, it's always described the same way. This recount from a prior treasure hunter. The ground ahead of me had a slight decline, the descent eventually opening up to a massive hole as wide across as 10 score men lying foot to head. I got closer to see what might be down there. Every step forward filled me with vertigo, that I might fall in at any minute. I couldn't see the bottom, but I heard it. 1,000 hammers tapping against 1,000 chisels. Plink, plink, plink. Now here the stories diverge. Some say there are miners down there, looking for gold, silver, precious gems. Others say it's sculptors, crafting idols and rare artifacts for their chthonic gods. Whatever is down there hasn't seen the light of day for hundreds or maybe even thousands of years. Anything brought back would surely be a unique trophy capable of fetching a sizable sum. Oddly, the precise location of this vast opening never seems to be identified in the same place. Some say it is only a few miles off the south bank of the Nave River, while others place it well to the north, nestled in the depths of the forest. These conflicting reports can almost certainly be attributed to the disorientation nearly all treasure hunters suffer after a time spent in the forest. But despite all the odds, you all arrive at the quarry. It is basically as described. A wide opening in the earth. You cannot see to the bottom of it, and dropping rocks down never results in a returning echo. You are all strapped into harnesses, rope in hand, rappelling down a single line, down a face of this vast opening. Horizontal veins chase around the wall, indicating the layers and layers of history that have built up in this land. Most of the veins are some shade of brown or gray, except for one, which is a blood red clay. I'd like to know the order down the line. Who do we think is first down?
I think Fionn would be, because they are convinced that, of course, down there is where, and the sounds and so on, are all signs of the swirling court.
Intriguing. Who would be next?
I think that Parda would be close behind. I think because similarly, she's heard the Witch of Navask referred to as the Witch of the Well. And I think she believes the witch is down there somewhere as well.
So this is not just a treasure hunting excursion for you. This is finding the witch and getting rid of this Gesh. Yeah, that's good. Interesting. That puts you last. It's going to take me a minute to get names. Akale.
Just the way I like it. Want to make sure that I don't die first, and then maybe loot the bodies if something goes wrong.
Very interesting. Questions as you are scaling down this deep hole. Do you have a plan, Fionn, when you inevitably run out of rope?
I think I do.
Are you going to share that with us, or are you keeping that to yourself for now?
Um,
Do your companions know of your plan?
I don't think so. And it's also, I mean, we can see Fionn, they are, the only reason why the others might not have been surprised how kind of nimble and quick they go down the rope is because they've seen Fionn in the forest, and despite their age, whenever they're like in the forest, or they seem to be really good on their feet. So yeah, I think that, but I don't think they have shared what their plan is, or even thought much about the end of the rope.
Interesting. Parta, how did you overcome your vertigo upon first seeing the quarry?
I think that Parta has a series of pouches on her hip with different herbs and salts, and obviously salt, as it's a required component for one of her rituals. But I think that when she first looked down and couldn't see the bottom and felt that almost impending doom, and felt her stomach drop out of her, I think she reached into her side pockets and pulled out I don't know, I'm no herbalist myself, but I imagine she mixed a kind of quick poultice that she rubbed under her nose, that helps with the feelings of vertigo, that helps with the stomach.
Intriguing. Akale, did Parta share that with you?
No. No, I don't
How does
think
that
so.
make you feel?
No one takes me seriously. It's fine. I'll get my revenge eventually.
Very interesting indeed. I want to go back to Fionn. Fionn, why are you uncertain about how securely the rope is fastened?
Because Fionn did not really pay that much attention to the fastening when they put the rope, or when they did put it on around the tree or whatever it is that it is fixed to, because it's just a convenient way of getting down there for as long as the rope goes.
Interesting. Let us speak of blood red clay, because this shaft is coursing with it. It's quite vivid in its redness, and it does indeed look like veins of blood in the earth. I think you are each from different places. You all have your own stories, your own legends that you've heard. I would like to know from each of you, what legend do your people, share about the vein of blood red clay? Whoever wants to speak first, go for it.
I think Parta's people speak of the blood red clay as in almost hushed and precious tones, because that clay, when worked into a laceration or wound, can be used to help heal it much quicker. Although many don't speak as often of some of the visions and dreams that those who use it in that way sometimes experience. But overall, it's viewed as something coveted, and to see it in such richness here is evidence of the bounty that lies below.
Interesting. Fionn or Akale?
I think Fionn's people, or at least Fionn themselves, is convinced that this red blood clay is kind of what is left over from the sounds of the swirling court. It's kind of the representation of how the earth itself dances with the music of the court. And whenever the court is not in session anymore, these veins of clay remain.
How intriguing. Creative residue, almost. Akale?
I think that Akale's people tell the story about how the blood red clay are injustices made manifest in the earth. Of
Intriguing.
any injustice wounds the earth.
Oh, how very interesting. Very, very interesting. So you are descending carefully, slowly. At a certain point, you feel a slackening in the rope. And then you feel the rope give. You will all need to hold on tight or otherwise secure yourself to the side of the wall. And you will be in a very, very bad place. But nevertheless, Fionn, when you realize that the rope is not going to hold, what do you do?
Fionn does a ritual. Let's see what that looks like.
Which ritual? Beasts?
Beasts, yes.
Or beast?
Beast, I think. Basically, they kind of, when Fionn notices that the rope is giving, they pull all four extremities close to their body. And I think they do this ritual, and they partly, if it works, they might partly turn into a squirrel and
Very
hold
good.
on to the side of the
I love it.
quarry.
So let's do a risk roll. So the way the risk roll works is you've stated your goal, which is to not plummet down the hole, right? And indeed to perhaps turn into a squirrel to cling to the side of the ball. Now, each of us as players, myself, David, and Alicia, we each get to say what we think could go wrong if you fail. I'm going to go with a simple answer, which is you plummet to your death. But of course, Alicia and David might have other more interesting thoughts than that. What does failure look like?
I think making such a transformation this close to the swirling court could leave you stuck as a squirrel.
Intriguing. Alicia, any thoughts?
I think in a similar vein, but not quite, I think you don't make it fully into squirrel and you end up like a hybrid human squirrel situation.
Interesting. So failure is ultimately up to me to decide what happens, but I've taken on your input, and now we'll move on to the next part of the move, which is you have to say, okay, you get one light die if your background or occupation have given you any number of skills that can assist you. And so, do you have a relevant skill right now? Probably beasts, but
Yeah, the ritual. Beasts, yes, the skill.
you have a skill called
sorry,
beasts as
it's
well,
the skill called beasts and the ritual beast. Exactly. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. So yes, I think the skill beasts is probably the right one.
You have a light die, and now you can take a second light die if you accept a devil's bargain from one of us. A devil's bargain is something that happens in the fiction no matter what. And I think that no matter what, you will find some evidence that the swirling court is here. Now, whether that's a complication or not is up to me to make it a complication, but nevertheless. Any offers You don't have to make an offer, but if there are any other offers, please say so. You have one offer on the table, Fiona. Do you accept it?
I do.
You now have 2 light dice, and you have to take a dark die because of the ritual. So go ahead and roll risk 2-1 in the dice section of the trophy Discord. There's a channel down at the bottom that says dice.
2-1. Let's see.
That's for 2 light, 1 dark. You got a 6 light. That's as good as you can get. So you are going to save yourself from plummeting down the hole. What does that look like?
I think Fionn pulls in arms and legs as close as possible, and then kind of pushes them out again and jumps to the wall. Now half squirrel, half elven kind of humanoid.
Do you have
And
like, are you a
hangs there.
flying squirrel? Do you have like the gliding?
I think that would make sense. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So you like kind of glide partially over to the wall. I like that.
Yes.
That's pretty good. Fantastic. Parda, how are you going to save yourself when you realize the rope is slackening or loosening and about to break?
I think she's going to take like a stake that one might drive into some rock or a tree as part of a trap of some kind, and she's just going to like drive it into the wall so she can have that to hold on to, and otherwise she's just going to try to find purchase on the wall.
I love it. That sounds great. Risk roll. Adrian, Alicia, what could go wrong here?
I think you're not strong enough to drive the stake in because it's stone.
Yeah, I kind of like that, where you do it, but it doesn't go all the way in, and so you're actually just like descending slowly on your spikes, kind of uncontrollably. Or just plummeting to your death. We'll decide. When time comes, I'll decide. Do you have anything to add, Adrian?
I think that's a great image, so let's leave it at that.
So let's talk about dice. Do you have a relevant skill that would help you here, Parda?
I'm thinking maybe traps for like having this equipment and like knowing how to use it.
Or even surprise, right? Because this took you by surprise.
Ooh, yeah.
Could also be a good one. I think they're both in the same vein, though. So hot vein. So you get 1 light die. And now we do devil's bargains. Something that will happen no matter what. Who has an offer?
I think you will definitely lose an important possession of yours.
I'm going to say no matter what. No matter what, you all lose whatever manner of getting back up you had was.
I don't have anything for this one.
We've got 2 offers.
I'll definitely take the losing the way back up.
Okay.
I think Parda may have even entered with the expectation that leaving would be a lot harder than going in.
Yeah. Now, you have 2 light dice, and I think a dark die is automatic because the nature of the roll is risking your mind or body, because your body is might be plummeting down into the pit. So go ahead and roll risk 2-1.
All right.
Okay,
Oh,
that's a 6 dark.
dark.
So it's a 6, which is good, but it's dark. So because dark is high and because it's higher than your current ruin, your ruin goes up by 1. But you are nevertheless safe. What does that look like?
I actually kind of liked the image that she drives on her spike, but it's like in one of those veins of clay. And so it's a controlled descent down deeper into the pit.
I think where your ruin comes from is when you drive the spike into the vein of clay, the earth shudders. There's like a it's almost like it's breathing or shuddering. Only you notice it. You're going to get a condition because that's what happens when your ruin goes up. And I'll tell you what that is later, but for now, that's good. And Akale, you're about to fall down the pit. What do you do?
Well, I too was going to jam something into the wall, but that's not fun if we all do the same thing. So instead, I think I'm going to call on some spirits
Okay.
to like catch me, basically.
I like it. Okay, good. So doing your channel ritual, I think that's fantastic. What could happen if this goes poorly? I think this is probably more of a devil's bargain, but I do like the idea of you being possessed by a malignant spirit. I think that would be great. But I might offer that as a devil's bargain. I haven't decided yet. Any other catastrophic consequences?
I think you might attract the attention of a powerful spirit that dwells here.
Also sounds like a good devil's bargain. Maybe we circle back to it.
I think what could happen is that the spirits throw you out to the top of the quarry. Back to the beginning.
Interesting. they really save you. Intriguing. Okay, so let's talk about dice. You have spirits as a skill, so I think you get your first light die from that. And then devil's bargain. I'm going to offer mine as a devil's bargain. You have a malignant spirit free writer from here on. So.
I'll also offer a devil's bargain, but specifically, I think you will have the attention of the Witch of Navask.
That's very interesting. Because if you accept it, it kind of puts the Witch of Navask in the pit, right? Yeah.
I feel like Adrian's thinking, so I'm gonna give him a minute.
No, I think well, maybe this is the last time the spirits will listen to you on this trip.
Give up your connection to the spirit world. That's intriguing. That's a big ask, but yeah. But you have 3 options. What do you think? You can reject them all too. You don't have to take any of them.
I think having a malignant spirit hanging around feels apt.
You have 2 light dice, and for the ritual, you have to add a dark die. So go ahead and roll risk 2 button. That is a 5 dark. That is a success. Your ruin will go up, but because it's a 5 and not a 6, there's a complication as well. The complication is going to be the malignant spirit is actually something that is, it's not in you, it's around and can F with everyone. If you're okay with that, let it ride. Otherwise, you can add a dark die to make that not the case. To roll again, you'll roll risk 2 or 2 light 2 dark in hopes of getting a 6. So
no, I'm fine with that. Sorry, everyone else. Malignant spirits.
Oh, actually, no, you can't reroll anyway because the 5 was high. So once dark is high, you can't do a reroll. So that's not even correct. Okay, yeah. So and your ruin is going up. You'll get a condition as well. But let's just have the scene. What does it look like when you channel the spirit to save you?
In order to channel the spirits, I think I have to actually like give up my body. So I actually like kind of let go of the rope and like start to fall. And I think there's a chant there. Yeah, there's definitely a chant. I'm not going to chant because I don't know what the chant is, but there's a chant. It's in a weird language. And then when the spirit kind of like takes over, I just like stop mid-air, like frozen. And I think that my eyes go all white.
I love it. So what we see at the end of this scene is Fionn having glided over to another part of the wall. We see Parda scraping down. This is all happening at once. Scraping down the side of the wall, and Akale falling, but then floating in the void, eyes white. It's a beautiful image. It's great. Take a look at the incursion. At the end of this moment, you will notice a few things. All of you, maybe not Akale, but the other two of you will notice there is a pocket carved into the wall. It's a little kind of far away on the wall. You'll have to find a way over there. But there is a pocket. It appears to be a tunnel going into the earth. And you hear coming from it the plink, 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 plink of someone hammering and chiseling deep below. I think at this point I would like to ask Fionn, what do you suppose the swirling court is doing down here?
An initiation ritual, looking for new members, incorporating new members into the court.
I will tell you that you will notice something that perhaps the others do not. Above this pocket, there is what appears to be one of these red clay veins, but it's spiraling in shape. It's a wide, loose spiral. So it just, if you're not paying attention, it just looks like vein. But you notice from the distance that you're at, and because you're looking for such things, you see the swirl. Parda, I owe you a condition, and I'm going to give it to you. Give me a moment, though. Your condition starts fairly innocuously at first. You have a compulsion, a desire to pick away at the rock face with your fingers or small tools. What about the moment when you're stabbing down and sliding down? What about that moment makes you want to do this? Makes you want to uncover what's behind the rock?
I think I think for Parda, it's reminiscent in many ways of all the times she's been hunting, where she's killed an animal or other creature, and with that final blow, drawn your blade across their greatest artery and bled them out. I think carving into the veins of this red clay like this is almost akin to dealing a death blow to the earth itself, and it makes her feel powerful more than anything else. To cut into the earth and to feel the earth shudder, I think makes her feel stronger than she's ever been before, and I think that that's attractive to her.
Thank you. Akale, if you don't mind for a moment, I'd like to take over the fiction of your character for just a bit as part of the complication and say that you are just sort of suspended there momentarily in a kind of catatonic state, if that's okay. Floating in the blackness, your eyes white. Your eye is really the only thing anyone can see. Except Fionn, you see another pair of white eyes further down below the shaft. There is something crawling up the shaft, the eyes getting closer and closer. this thing, whatever it is, it's still a little shadowy, extends its body from the wall in a very extreme way in order to be face to face, as if laying atop Akale, white eyes staring into white eyes. And it just has a wide smile spread across its face. Fiona, I would like for you to make a ruin roll, please. Ruin roll is whenever you notice anything strange or disturbing, you make a ruin roll, which is a single dark die. It's a 5. And what is your current ruin?
2.
So your ruin is going up to 3, and you're also going to get a condition. How does this make you feel?
Anxious because there is some monstrous entity blocking my access, my progress towards the court.
The entity continues to smile, and again, all you see is just the bright white teeth and the wide eyes. And then it stretches back over to the wall and crawls back down from whence it came. Akale, you find yourself, when you come out of it, you're actually over in that pocket in the wall. You've been floated over there safely into this little tunnel. Fionn, you can glide down to the tunnel, no problem. Parta, you have to get over there. So what is your plan for getting over there?
I think tying in with her condition, to her desire to cut into it, I think she's going to try to pick a rough path that follows the veins of clay, and she's going to pull out a spike and go a little further over, and she's just going to cut her way there.
Very interesting. As you do so, and I don't even know if the others perceive this. It might just be you perceiving this. As you do so, I'm not going to make you roll. You hear, with each stab into the vein, you hear this deep moaning sigh coming from the earth, like, oh, God. Ooh. Easily explained away as wind, and yet it is not. Make a ruin roll, please. You got a 2, so you're okay. How are you processing this?
I think Parta is almost subconsciously, almost unconsciously, she's like smiling just a little bit as she makes her way across. If she makes it all the way across to the entrance and kind of drops down in the face of the tunnel, I think, she dusts herself off and her face goes back to board. But while she was crossing that distance, she was smiling.
You were all making your way in your various ways over to the pocket, the tunnel. I think, Parta, you brush up against some of this clay, leaving a blood red smear on your shoulder. You all hear that steady plink, 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 now like a heartbeat. Plump, 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 plump. And yet, I must ask the question as we end ring 1. Do you feel embraced? Or do you feel cold? That's for everyone.
I think Parda had originally approached here with some amount of apprehension, determination, but also apprehension. But now that she's made her way deeper down, more inside, I think she does feel embraced. I think she feels, regardless of what lies ahead, I think she feels like this is where she belongs right now.
I think I also feel embraced, although I don't entirely understand why.
I think Fionn feels very cold.
I think I owe Akale and Fionn conditions. We will do that when we get back. But for now, as you all get into the tunnel to relative safety, that concludes ring 1. Let's take a 5-minute break. Ring 2. You are all there in the tunnel, huddled up together for the first time in a bit. Let's just have a little bit of role play. Let's just have that scene for a bit. You're going to eventually have to head out into this tunnel to go find whatever it is you're seeking. But for now,
Is Fionn still partially transformed?
I think they are kind of back to being humanoid with some some resemblances left of squirrel, and I think they're like so cold. Do you have a blanket?
Pardo will like cast a glance maybe first at Akala, and then, yes, I have a blanket here, and goes into her bag and
Just
one
want to
out.
warm up for a moment.
She kind of like lightly tosses it to you across rather than hand it over. It's not a
Thank you.
terribly thick blanket. It's a fairly thin blanket, but it is a blanket.
Fionn looks at the other two and to the other, must be my old bones.
Yes, after all of that exertion, I'm feeling almost warmed. If the chill befalls me, though, I will need that blanket back.
Yes, yes.
Are we gonna sit here for a little bit while you get warm?
Well, the best way to warm the body is usually to exert it. It sounds like whatever's making that noise is some distance away. Perhaps we warm our bodies the natural way.
Yes,
question.
there's fire, music, and everything when we arrive there. It's gonna be glorious.
I have a question. In this setting, Faeborn wear masks. They are wooden masks, usually kind of featureless or maybe with horns or something, but they are never seen without their masks. And there are all sorts of rumors about what you would see if you removed a Faeborn's mask. I'm curious, from the two of you who are not unmasked Faeborn, what kind of stories had you heard about what is beneath the mask of the Faeborn? And what about Fionn contradicts this, or maybe even subtly enforces it?
I think the stories Parda has heard is that until they've stolen someone else's face, there is nothing beneath the mask. That's why they wear the masks. But I think in seeing Fionn here now, and she keeps like casting more glances at his face, or at their face rather. I think if a face has been stolen and applied here, it's a very good job, because like it looks very natural. The skin flows as you would expect, and it seems like their face is their face. And so I think she's questioning whether or not that bit of knowledge is true or hyperbole.
I had heard that they were undead and the masks are to cover the evidence of that. But this is my first time meeting one, and I can tell you from being close that they don't smell like death.
What does Fionn smell like?
I think there's still a sense of decay, like of rotted wood, of things in the forest that are breaking down, but not death.
Fionn, as part of your condition, you have the strong urge to be reborn. Where does that come from?
I think when unmasked, Faeborn do decay rather quickly, like basically every year becomes 10 years of age or something. And so most of them decide to seek out, and the mask is not a regular kind of mask. It has some sort of magic in it, right? So you cannot just easily find another one if your mask is lost or destroyed or you're otherwise unmasked. But Fionn decided not to seek another mask, but rather to join the court, because that is another way, or that's a way to be reborn, rather.
This urge to be reborn may manifest in different ways as we continue, but for now, that is your condition. Akale, the others can't see it, but you feel something from the shadows, gently stroking your hand, leaving your hand very, very cold. The stroking is friendly, like you might do to a child or an animal, but cold. And where you are being touched, your hand is completely petrified. It is stone. Do you keep that secret?
Yes.
What are you thinking right now?
I feel confused. It's not unusual for me to interact with spirits, but they don't generally stick around and they don't harm me.
Interesting. You hear from deep, deep within this tunnel system, and indeed further down below from wherever you're at, this plinking with the rhythm of a heartbeat. Plink, 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 plink. Parda, the earth in this tunnel, is it easier to claw away or harder?
I think it's a bit more difficult. I think the veins of clay are not so exposed here. And so as they stand or as they walk, Parda kind of keeps inspecting the walls and looks for anywhere where the stone is a little bit redder. And she idly, drives her spike in and sees if she can pull away a little bit more of it.
Yeah. In Ring 2, the crawl begins. You are, in fact, crawling through these tunnels. They are not so that you can really stand. Occasionally, you can kind of get on your haunches a bit, but that's the most. You are making your way through, I'm going to say in the same order as you were before. Warm, moist cave air is collecting on your brow, mingling with your sweat. Crawling through the pockets in the wall leads to a series of dead ends. Doubling back leads to undiscovered paths. That tapping does eventually get louder and louder, seemingly coming from below, making you think you are on the right track at least. But you are nevertheless lost. You're generally going in the right direction, but you're wasting a lot of time navigating these tunnels. It's hard to have a light source bigger than a candle because of the confined nature of the tunnel. And so you're also crawling around in the darkness, more or less, just able to see inches in front of your face. Who wants to navigate the tunnels? Who has the skill set most appropriate for that?
I have vigilance, which could maybe help. I don't know if someone has anything better. That's, I feel like, the best I have to offer. Really paying attention to my surroundings.
Indeed.
I think given Fionne's sort of ranger occupation or even partial beast abilities, that maybe if we can't see, that Fionne may be able to guide us by smell, that they might be able to lead us in that way. What do you think, Adrian?
Interesting. Give me 1 second.
If all else fails, the malevolent spirit can definitely guide us. That won't go badly at all.
Yeah, that'll be a great way. That's actually something I was wondering for the role play. Is your relationship to spirits something that you've talked about at all before we entered here?
Probably, yeah. It's probably not
Okay.
a secret at all.
Okay.
I think the Fionne tracking by scent. You also have hunting, which is maybe helpful for like implies tracking or navigating in a way. And also traps and illusions in case there's any kind of magic stuff down here. Probably Fionne is the one navigating the tunnels, if that makes sense to you, Fionne. Let's do a risk roll. Everyone's in danger from this roll. I'm curious what David and Alicia, what might go wrong if Fionne leads you astray.
I think that something else which uses these tunnels to traverse this space, I think we will encounter something.
I think that Fionne picked up on something, which is that the tunnels are getting colder, and the longer we're lost in them, the colder and the slower we get. And I think that we could freeze to death.
I like both of those. I don't have anything to add. Let's talk about skills. We've already talked about your skills. So you've got one light die, Fionn. What about Devil's Bargains? I'm going to play with David's and say, no matter what, you do encounter something in the tunnels.
I think the Devil's Bargain I'll add is in like maybe because part has been picking at the walls or whatever. But everyone experiences a bit of the earth shaking. And I think maybe for a while we end up divided. I think that's my Devil's Bargain.
I think that there comes a point where you have to make a choice. There's an obvious split. And no matter which one you choose, there'll be a weird detour.
Those are all fun. What do you think, Adrian?
I think weird detour sounds fine.
Weird detour it is. Okay. I don't think there's a dark die necessarily here, so it's just risk 2 for now. Too light.
Okay. Oh, 1 snake.
Snake eyes. Okay. That's a fail. You are entitled to add a dark die and try again if you wish.
I think I'm gonna stick with this. It's a double 1.
Very good. That gives me free reign to do whatever I want to do. Thinking back on the things we negotiated and or at least talked about for failure. I think I can combine your weird detour as well. You are crawling around in these tunnels. It is pretty slow going. Give us a little bit of the fiction, Fionn. Like, how are you navigating? What does it look like on screen?
I think mostly with like, I think they had like a wooden staff gnarled, like a root strapped to their back. And now I think they're kind of poking in front of them, kind of using this crawling to see where we are going. But it's taking time, and I think they're getting more and more kind of frantic and anxious, and it at least they are feeling like the closer they get, they might be aging even more quickly.
The whole time, Akale, the spirit you summoned, keeps saying in a stage whisper to you, "This isn't the way. You are crawling away from the womb. This is not the way. Can't you feel the goose flesh rising? Can't you feel the cold setting in your bones? The warmth of her embrace is getting further and further away." How are you responding to that, Akale? First of all, Akale, make a ruin roll, and then tell me how you're responding to it. You got a 2, so you're okay as far as that goes. But so what are you doing?
So even though I'm kind of confused, the spirits, I feel like, have rarely guided me the wrong way. I also think that listening to the spirits is probably part of something I have to do to like become the patron of Ansem, is that what his name is? Their name? Ansem
Talk
the
about
Whistle?
that. Yeah.
So I think that even though I'm feeling confused because this sort of malevolent spirit, it harmed me, maybe it helped me, that's kind of unclear. I think I'm gonna listen to it and follow it.
Oh, so you're not going the direction that Fiona is taking you.
Maybe for a little bit, but the more it's in my head, the more I'm convinced.
Yeah. Parda, what's the first sign you get that Fiona is taking you somewhere cold?
I think as they're crawling, at first together, at least, I think Parda, anytime she finds loose or softer stone or clay, she sort of tugs at it and pulls at it as she's crawling along. And I think she's found that she's stopped being able to feel her fingers from both the rough action of clawing at that, but then also just the earth itself is getting colder. And so she's starting to lose sensation in her fingertips.
Fiona and Parda, eventually you realize that Akali is no longer with you. And you come upon a large opening. And despite how cold this large cave space that you're going into is, it is nevertheless a release from the tight confines of the tunnel, right? For a moment, at least, you take a big free breath of air. But as you wave your candle around, you notice that the walls are covered in ice. And you see dozens upon dozens of little stone statues of children. They are each posed in a manner of pleading and anguish. Their hands over their faces, on their knees, crying, looking up, pleading. A few of them are actually turned and facing away into the corner of the chamber, pressed into the corner of it. And all of them are covered with a thin layer of ice or rime. Both of you make a ruin roll, please. What'd you end up with?
I had a 1.
Okay.
5.
Does that mean you're going up, Fiona?
Yes.
Fiona, you will know that this is the place of the orphans. These are the children who no longer have the warmth of their mother's embrace. This is their fate. What do you do?
These are the ones that attempted to join the court, but were never reborn. Now, frozen children till the end of time.
Well,
Quick.
I'm starting to think that maybe Akali had the right idea not coming down this path.
We're on the right way. I can see it. But we cannot get stuck here.
Well, where to?
At that precise moment, there is a cave-in behind you, trapping you in this frozen chamber. Akali, you hear it. The spirit says, the last of the orphans has arrived. And Parda and Fiona, you will have to free yourself from this place or you will freeze to death. Parda, what do you do?
I think Parda will inspect the walls and look for soft places And I think she's going to, following her instincts right now of carving away at the rock, at the lime. I think she's going to try to essentially tunnel through to another aperture.
Good. Let's have a risk roll. We'll come back to it in a moment, though. I want to pick up with Akale for just a bit. Akale, you hear this rumble of the earth. Do you go back for your companions? Or do you leave them to their fate?
If the spirit is telling me to do something or to go a certain way, then I will listen to the spirit.
I don't know what the spirit has to say, but I do know this. At a certain point, you find what looks to be a very well-used pickaxe. And you see the head and part of an arm of an exquisitely carved, life-size granite statue of a child, but just the head and the arm. How might finding one of these statues whole and bringing it back to the surface help you achieve your drive? You can think on it for a moment, unless you have an answer.
I'll think on it.
I'll go back over to Parda. Parda, let's build your die pool. Alicia, Adrian, what could go wrong here if Parda does not find a way out? I think it's pretty straightforward. They both freeze to death, but if anybody else has any other ideas, I'm open to hearing them.
Maybe they get turned into these children?
Maybe, yeah.
Or devoured by them?
Maybe there's the wherever she's digging ends at an ice wall, making it even like opening up another vein of ice, making it even colder and having us freeze more quickly.
Let's get dice on the table. Do you have a relevant skill, Parda?
I don't think so, unless we treat surprise as the ability to act well in surprising situations. But
no, it feels like a bit of a stretch. I think you might only have Devil's Bargain at play here. My Devil's Bargain is I like you encounter a creature in the tunnels. Go back to that one.
No matter what, the children will stir.
I think that you, even if you survive, even if you escape, you have like embodied the cold somehow, and now like your blood runs cold and you are ice cold to the touch.
Those are all interesting choices. What do you think, David?
I'm really interested to see these children stir.
That sounds good. And I think a dark die is automatic here because of danger. So go ahead and roll risk 1-1.
All right. That's not great.
That is not great. That is a 2 ruin, which is, or it's a 2 dark, 2, and because dark is high, you have to stop, and it's a failure. It's as bad as you could have rolled, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think the only way you're getting out of this is if you help Fionn. Do you want to do the help roll?
I was just about to ask whether that is possible here, and I think I will because I have traps as a skill, so maybe that...
Yeah, you have to just state how you're leaving yourself vulnerable and then roll weak to get a light die to help.
I think I'm also moving into the tunnel, I guess. That's probably like in whatever Parda has already dug.
Go ahead and roll weak. Let's see if you can do any better than a 2. You do a 4. Very good. Save the day. So you are, it's a success of the complication. The complication is just the, I think it has to do with the reanimating statues or the stirring statues. Give us the scene though, how the two of you kind of finding your way out. What does this look like breaking free?
Yeah, I think that like Parta starts scratching away at the walls, and maybe Fiona's still looking for like another way out or like a hidden way out, when the icy sheen on the statues begins to crack as what was stone is now beginning to move. And I think, as you said, Adrian, I think that's maybe when Fiona comes over and starts helping Pardo with the tunnel out, because everything else seems to be advancing more quickly. I think Pardo hears the stirring behind and asks maybe like, what? I think like she's laser focused, pulling away bits of the earth, and like, what is there something in there behind us?
I think I heard something, or we need to get out of the children. They want to keep us here forever. Don't let them touch you.
You think like start to hear faster crying, children weeping, and they're crying out, "Tell her we love her. Tell her we love her. We want to come home." Both of you roll ruin, and then that'll be that scene.
Six.
What does that put you up at?
5. I'm burning quickly.
Yes. What'd you get, Parda?
2.
Fiona, you are in the danger zone. Fiona, I want to deepen your condition at this point and ask you your desire to be reborn. Why must you cut off parts of you and bury it in this earth in order to be reborn?
Because I think Fiona, like all elves, believes that they grow from the ground. They're not born by mothers.
This is very, very fecund ground. Are you going to do that?
Not yet.
Akale, how will coming back with one of these statues intact help you achieve your drive?
So I think that Handsome the Wistful has got a little bit of a Dr. Frankenstein thing going on and is creating creatures of some kind. And so one of the things that I am doing to sort of get into his good graces is hunting for pieces. And I think that this would go very nicely in his collection.
Fantastic. Akale, you're by yourself for a time, trying to find the location of this plinking, or at least getting wherever you're supposed to be. Did you keep the pieces of the statue that you found?
Absolutely.
It's very dark. You just have your candle. The candle is not enough, though. How do you push back against the darkness, whether that be literally or figuratively?
I actually think that I embrace it. I close my eyes and navigate just sort of by sense, and maybe following the sense I have of this sort of spirit that's been whispering in my ear.
I love it. Fiona and Parda, you are also back on track, going through the tunnels. You're warming up, which is good. What makes the both of you think, just Parda. Parda, what makes you think something terrible has happened to Akale or is currently happening to Akale?
I think that the statues of the children are small enough that even in these tight tunnels, they can almost like walk. They're much smaller, much more diminutive than we are as adults. And I think that she hears echoing back in the tunnel and away and in perhaps adjacent tunnels. I think she hears the step, like the stomping of little feet. And she still hears their wails. And I don't think she believes that Akale could possibly have avoided them.
Fionn, you might hang back for a moment at one point because you come upon a little pool of much more liquid clay, and it is in motion. It is swirling. What do you do? Do you bury part of yourself to be reborn?
I think this is the first real, like, kind of alive sign of the court for Fionn. Before it was kind of the veins had stopped swirling. This one is kind of still alive. So I do think they, just to be sure, want to leave something in there, just to be sure not to end up like one of these frozen children. So I think they will take out the very sharp hunter's knife and cut off one of their ears. And lay it down in the kind of swirling clay, and it slowly kind of sinks.
Parda, at a certain point, you'll realize that Fionn is not immediately behind you anymore. What do you do?
I think that Parda assumes that there are more of the children coming down the path behind her, and I think she's going to quicken her pace.
Parda, a gesh is a magical restriction or obligation.
Yes.
What has the Witch of Navask bound you to do or not do?
So I think that Parda believes that her brother had somehow got the Witch of Navask to place a gesh on their people that binds them to his service. And so she's trying to break it, not from on her, but on them. Or again, perhaps she's being misled and really he's just turned them against her. But she believes that there is foul magic at play.
I think we wrap up with Fionn slicing off their ear and putting it into the swirling red clay. Parda quickening her pace, crawling down the tunnel, trying to get to the goal, meet up with Akale, whatever, just get out of there. And Akale crawling in the darkness, You hear occasionally, this way, this way. Yes, yes, come this way. And an occasional stroke on the back of your hand or neck. Good, very, very good. And so passes ring 2. We'll pick up next week with ring 3, 4, and 5. But for now, let's do stars and wishes. You all know the routine. Whoever wants to go first, take it away.
I think start to the cast of characters, which became very quickly very plastic, kind of very individualized. It's a fun group.
Oh, go ahead, David.
Just start of the setting for getting eerie just immediately. I love that.
My stars too. I feel like everyone really is embracing the like play to lose aspect. Like people are like taking their shitty roles and just going with it. So
yeah, I had a good time. I like the I really love of all the, I mean, all of the Trophy Dark incursions have a really strong theme, but Mother's is particularly strong. Like the theme is labor, but that word is Jesse is using that word in so many ways, right? And you can kind of see it all coming out, especially with like all the stuff about like birth and motherhood and the literal labor that someone is doing deep down below, right? So just really loving all that. And I like how the characters are also like sort of their outcomes are sort of like leaning into that quite a bit, like, or at least it feels like it. You all feel like you are about to be a part of some terrible womb. Something is going to happen, spiritually or physically, a rebirth that no one will probably like. And so I'm just digging all that. And yeah, and the characters are really good so far. I like how everyone's kind of, it kind of feels like, it definitely feels like one of those movies where like we don't know a lot about them. We don't know, but we know what we know, and that's good enough, you know, and we'll get glimpses as we go, but I'm enjoying it so far. Yeah, those are my stars. My broad stars. I thought there were some really good like devil's bargains, and I love that the system led us to do a thing that the incursion did not anticipate, that sort of like the cold embrace or whatever. That was really great. So yeah,
I really like the like very healthy amount of devil's bargains in this game, because like it's one of my favorite mechanics that exists in Blades in the Dark, and I feel like it's kind of underused actually at the table. But with this game, it's like, no, there's always a devil's bargain. It could always be worse. I really like that.
One that drives the story. I mean, it really propels the story, right?
Yeah. Start to the beginning with the rope, because it doesn't have to, because it can be, you know, just one person doing something, but it was an interesting moment because it gave like each of the characters their own scene and very much characterizing them, like, you know, how they dealt with this problem. I thought that was great.
Yeah, that's the way it felt to me when I decided, because sometimes I just call for like one risk roll to survive a thing, you know, but it felt right to have you all do it. And I was hoping it would be a chance for you each get to show like what you do, you know, like what your character is all about. And so that was fun. I agree with that completely. As far as wishes go, I really, I'm interested to see a little bit more about this spirit and this malignant spirit and what it wants and what its connection is to the setting. That's very intriguing to me. I am curious if the Witch in a Bosk will actually ever make an appearance, or if that's just something that's kind of just beyond our grasp a bit. And I'm curious if I definitely want to know if Fiona is going to get their rebirth or not, or whatever that happens to be. And so, yeah, just and I know what's coming in the incursion, so I'm also secretly wish, you know, I'm excited to see what, you know, how you all react to it, because it gets to be quite harrowing. So yeah.
Relate.
Good.
just a related wish to what you just said. I really like each of our drives, and I really am interested in seeing how that gets explored in the course of the story. For Parta specifically, I don't know yet if it's going to be more interesting if the Witch of Navask is actually here and makes an appearance, or if it'll be more tragic that Parta has been wrong about it this entire time, or I don't know. Like no matter where that forks, juicy bits surround.
There's a part of me that likes the idea of it's just like delusion, like it may not even be a real thing,
Yeah.
which I find fascinating.
It could be there is no Gesh and she's just here. So
I think it's interesting. So I hope I can make it next week. So if not, I think the system very clearly set up with the High Ruin and maybe one of the children kind of lurking. So where Fionn is kind of waiting to drop this ear in the clay, maybe.
When you're kind of separated from the group too. So if it ends up
exactly.
just being Alicia and David, it's okay. It'll work in the story. So
Yeah, I'm excited for us to come together. I mean, hopefully Adrian will be able to make it and we can all come together. But I'm excited for the rejoining to sort of see what happens with that. I wasn't planning on peeling off, but you presented the opportunity and then I did. I'm also just excited to see what's up with the spirit. It's malignant, but maybe it'll save me.
Yeah, who knows?
So
Fantastic.
one of the funny things, like one more star, which is kind of very particular to me, but so in Heidelberg, where I've been spending some time, there's something called the Holy Mountain, Heiligenberg, which has a lot of things, old ruins of a cloister. And there's what is called the Heidenloch, a pagan hole in the ground. You can Google that. There's putting a link here in the chat, but you can also find it. There's only a German Wikipedia. And the funny thing is, it's basically a long shaft in the ground that nobody knows where it really came from and what it is. And there's a lot of myths about it. It is.
Yeah.
I was there about a month ago, and I thought and I hadn't read Mother, and I thought this is a role-playing game adventure waiting to happen. Everything about this. And apparently someone already wrote it. So thank you, Jesse.
Yeah, that's great. I love it. That's horrifying. A big, deep hole in the ground. We don't know what it is, what's down there, where it comes from. Terrifying. Yeah. Nothing. I'll tell you what, for a couple of days on Twitter, there was this thing where people were posting videos of people who do cave diving, like diving in caves, in water. Horrifying. I've never been so stressed out like watching a 5-minute video. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so nerve-wracking, because it's like the death rate is so high. Like they have signs that literally say you will probably die if you do this, and yeah, it just gets my, or like that movie Descent. I don't know if you've ever seen Descent, but man, that gets my blood pressure up. So the setting of Mother is always gives me those like vibes, and it's good. I like it, but it's definitely like there are a few things to me scarier than just like crawling around in underground, right? Like it's proper scary. And it's actually one of those things that frustrates me about traditional fantasy games. In fact, a thing that frustrates me about traditional fantasy dungeon crawl games is, like, to me, the setup is fundamentally scary, right? Like it's fundamentally a horror thing, right? Like you are going underground in tight tunnels where there are monstrosities that live under the ground, right? And so I like it when a game adequately accounts for just the basic horror of that. And I think Trophy does. So it's good. But yeah, that's awesome though. Hide and look. Any other stars or wishes? Okay, well then I will hopefully, Adrian, see you next week, and I'll see Alicia and David next week, and we will wrap up Mother. All right, let's stop this.